how you doing? Look, I can't wait to play the new Stalker. However, the game is very large and takes a very long time to download. So while I'm trying to conserve bandwidth, it's the perfect time to play Assetto Corsa. At the moment, I'm really enjoying fixing various, not so premium quality car mods I find. I thought I'd share what the process looks like. Alright, like this. Pressing F5 and dragging with the mouse rotates the camera and we can see that the car is very low. It needs to be adjusted higher, but ride height isn't the only height I'm interested in. I would like to see the full extension of the suspension as well as where the bump stops are. So I unpack the car data and take backups of the originals, remembering to move the old data file away from the root folder. And next it's finally time to jump into the data files. Find the suspension file and open it. Simply by moving the decimal point I can give the car an unreasonably low spring rate. After saving the file and launching the game, what that allows me to do is to observe the car without springs basically. We can see that the car is now even lower. And that's because it's now only supported by the bump stops, and we see that the bump stops are at a reasonable height. The car has plenty of space for bump travel. So now we see where the car settles on the bump stops, but it would also be useful to see where the bump stops start engaging. To do that, I'll leave the spring rate as it is, negligible, and instead I'll increase the bump stop rate to an unreasonably high value. The front of the car was sagging just a bit low, so while I'm here, I'll make the front bump stop engage earlier. Now just hitting save, and it's time to see what the car looks like. About where the ride height was before. But remember, this is practically the tippy tips of the bump stops. Next, I'd like to see the droop as well. That gives us a pretty good image of the suspension travel. So I'll do what I just did with the bump stops, give the spring rate an unreasonably high value. The spring rate is now around 20 times that of the original value. It will show us what the maximum extension of the suspension is. And it looks just about like what the car would have come like from the factory. At ride height that is, the OEM dampers probably extend about a good 5 to 8 centimeters further than that. In other words, 2 to 3 inches. But for a car with maybe a coilover set, it's believable. So, for now, I'll return the spring rates to what they were and I'll look at something else. There. So, next, I'll adjust the suspension geometry a little bit. I noticed the suspension arms were at a funny angle, and so I want to change that. First of all, the steering rack is dangerously far back in the chassis, and also the steering angle is lower than I think it should be. So I'll shorten the knuckle by changing the star steer value to be 2 centimeters forward, and then the rack. To move it forward is done by changing the third value of this coordinate, car steer. After hitting save I can see that the changes are what I expect them to be. With the rack so far back it's easier for the tire to overturn. So I'm moving it quite a bit forwards, total of 7 centimeters. I may have gone a bit overboard, still this game doesn't have steering stoppers. Next I'll move all these points down about an inch. You have to be careful about the sign of, is it positive or negative, before doing addition or subtraction of these coordinates. For numbers that are positive I'm subtracting 2. For those that are negative, I'm adding more negative centimeters, more towards the ground. I won't touch the strut value because it's fine where it is. After hitting save I can see the changes worked. I'll just do the same once more for all points. And these two, I need to be careful because the sign changes. Being mindful of changing the correct decimal to meters, decimeters, centimeters, 2 centimeters less. Looks good. The rear end has the same problem. This time, I only want to move any point that's attached to the chassis, so I'll be careful to skip all the entries with tire in the name. I could edit this out, but it might also be useful for someone. First two are the top control arm, next to the lower control arm. I'll skip the upper and lower ball joints. Car steer in this case is where the tow control arm is on the car. Tire steer is the tow control arm and on the hub side, and that won't be changed now. With these changes, the roll center is lowered, especially in the rear. Next, I'd like to take a look at the tire file, since the car had some considerable understeer. Okay, first I'll take note what the default tire is and find the corresponding entries. The tire widths are pretty wild for a blah by Subaru. I'd reckon the 35s match the tires on the model. Might as well make the tires a bit more supple. I've learned that these ones are remnants of some earlier version of the game and not used anymore. Matching the rear hardness to the fronts and removing these ones. By the way, I don't recommend flex value as high as this. Half of this is good. And getting rid of too much timber sensitivity. This is confusing and seems to cause more problems than good. I'll glance over the rest of the values and look for wild differences between the front and the rear that could explain the understeery tendencies. They have said zero affects traction. Maybe it's dependent on downward pressure, I'm not sure. I'm not even 100% sure what these do. Maybe how linear the grip is, laterally and longitudinally. dx and dy ref seems to alter the base grip of x and y directions. Fall-off speed changes how fast the tires lose traction with increasing slip angle. I like values around 10, much more than you'd usually find. With it too low, the tires don't lose that much traction when locked up or sliding. And I haven't found it difficult to drive at all. On the contrary, it's weird when tires never lose grip. Alignment values still look alright. Okay, I guess there's not much else left on to test drive it. Turns nice. Nothing bad to say about the tires so far. Of course, they're still cold as well. The understeer is reduced by a lot, but it's not entirely gone. Yeah, you can carry a good amount of speed into corners now. There's just a tiny bit of understeer that we can get rid of, but it's far from being a problem anymore. I think this video is long enough as it is. In the next one I will show you how to visualize bump steer. So thank you for watching this far and have a good one. See you in the next one. Bye.